From my right, your left, is Nina. She is the executive director of the Biohacking Village. She's a clinician with decades of experience in the healthcare industry, and she's also a hacker. To her left, your right, is Sharka, who is an open source social engineering expert who does red teaming for a variety of industries and is also a hacker and a friend of mine. To my right, your left, is Yelena, a physician's assistant and clinician for over 3 decades. Today, we're going to be talking about healthcare in crisis, as you heard from our opening line. My first question to the panelists is, what do you think is the largest issue facing clinicians today from your perspective and experience? Yelena, why don't you kick it off for us, please, ma'am?
So I just want to make a small... I'm a pediatric nurse. I'm not physician assistant, even I sometimes did work like that. But in my opinion, the biggest issues is communication and understanding each other between healthcare professionals and security professionals, so they can understand the needs of each other, and they can make things working good and working better than that we have now. If we get that we can make a lot of much better security and much better healthcare.
Thank you, Yelena. Sharka, what say you from your hacker perspective? Tell us what you think is the greatest challenge to healthcare in the 21st century.
Well, I come from the operational technology and ICS space. So for me, what I'm seeing, the issues are very similar to the OT or ICS space. So it's all the legacy systems. It's actually the issues with the technology and specifics of these systems, and the lack of security and how we are behind. So I think that's something that we should work on together in these two fields in terms of characteristics and the blueprints of how we are approaching the cybersecurity.
Thank you, Sharka. And Nina, what do you say? You're a unique individual on this panel. As the executive director of the Biohacking Village, you've got that clinical experience, you've got that hacking. You've just heard from a clinician, you've heard from a hacker. What do you believe is the greatest threat to healthcare today in the 21st century?
I think it's a combination of both of those comments. It's that the healthcare industry has basically been in a silo of its own, and it hasn't reached out to learn from the other industries that it works with. So if we looked at ICS or finance or how the legislature is working or not working, and started having better communication with healthcare and with the other industries, and said, this is how we are performing, how can we perform better, and then put that into real working ability, that I think would be super helpful, because it would create a very different dynamic in what is currently happening, because it would create more universal laws, rules, regulations, standard metrics, and audits.
Excellent. Sharka, you said something interesting that brings up a thought to me. What is the threat surface? Obviously, you're looking at communication ports on devices. You mentioned something at the very technical level. From your perspective, further expanding on what you mentioned as far as the adversary that might be out there that would want to target, who do you think that adversary is for healthcare, and how would they gain access to a healthcare system? It seems difficult.
Is it? I think that what we've seen, I really love talking to people here, because we've seen lots of people coming to our booth where we are speaking to them about different attack vectors, but some of them are as simple as we are showcasing on devices that we bought here in a pharmacy. It's everything from ports, Bluetooth, the applications, all the way to the human side of things. So it's who are the people that are most likely going to use these devices. So that it would be senior citizens that are not tech savvy, or their social media literacy is not high. So whatever they are reading online, it might not be correct. So the different attack vectors that we've been talking about are not exactly that hard, or as we're saying, advanced.
Wow, and you bring up some interesting points. You mentioned a lot of threat vectors as well. Yelena, from your perspective, I'm hearing a lot of patient data, a lot of privacy issues in what Sharka just said, and it kind of makes my blood boil, but I'm the moderator, so I'm not going to comment. What do you think about this from a clinician perspective? Is data privacy really that important from a hacker perspective, given you're a clinician?
I think that the protection of that data in healthcare are really important because we talk about information about someone privately, and they need to know that everything what they say to clinician, to nurse or doctor is safe and is not going everywhere else. And if with that we build trust. And if we lose trust, we cannot work. So the protection of data in the healthcare from perspective of patient, but also from clinician, is very important to save.
Well, you just mentioned the human component of that privacy issue. Nina, in your experience, I mean, what I'm hearing is that you've got a porous environment in the clinical world that someone of your skill and experience could easily take advantage of. And why would you do that?
The classic question of who wants to hurt a patient, because the answer is really nobody. I premise it with this. When I go in to do work, to do things, I don't look at it as what is saving a life or what isn't. I look at everything as a machine. Everything is just sending me data. Everything is sending me some sort of modified information. To have the interactive conversation of the data and the pushing of the data. I want to go back to what Sharka was saying before.
Please.
And I want to understand. I want to talk about
conversation, ladies. Yeah, absolutely.
So we were talking about you were talking about ICS, but to counter you, healthcare does work in the silo. The problem is that it works in a silo. Because if you think about how healthcare is, it uses water, it uses electricity, it uses the air pressure situation, right? We need sterility and other things like this. So the attack vector is not just the silo of healthcare, it's the whole range of everything. You hit one, you can get
Well, Nina, it's interesting you should say that, and we'll get to you here in a second, Shark, and I can see you levitating, Elena. Critical infrastructure, I mean, there are 16 areas of critical infrastructure in the U.S.
Yeah.
The UK has 10, Australia has 12. I mean, healthcare is not really regarded as a critical infrastructure, is it? From what I'm hearing here, you're telling me it's a silo, so help demystify that for us.
So it is. In the U.S. it is. The problem with that situation is that pharma is not, bio is not, so you're missing a lot of the components to make healthcare medical whole.
But isn't it about patient safety, though?
Yes. But what part of those are not part of patient safety? If pharma is manipulated in any sort of way, creates a patient issue. If agriculture, as we saw during the pandemic, food started becoming scarce, that's a problem. Agriculture is part of the bigger infrastructure.
And Sharka, you were going to say something. You were levitating as well. This is exciting.
I'm ready to go. I really liked your question from before.
Yes.
That it was who would attack these devices, and I got that question from the attendees here a lot because they hear me speak and they're like, who is crazy enough? Who would want to attack this? And same thing, no one. That's what would you think? But let's look at the beginning of the pandemic, where even the cyber gangs, they were saying, we will not attack with ransomware your hospitals, and if it's going to happen, we're going to give you decryption keys. That lasted about 3 months. We all know how they were attacking and how they are attacking hospitals and ICS and critical national infrastructure.
Well, Sharka, that leads to, hold on one second, and we'll get to you, Elena. Hold on. So what are the motivations for somebody to look for vulnerabilities in these connected environments? What are the motivations of a hacker?
Are you talking a hacker or a cybercriminal?
Both.
Or researcher.
Because another question I got, there are lots of people who are, so what happens if I find a vulnerability in these devices? That's where we come in as Biohacking Village. We help with the coordinated vulnerability disclosure. As a malicious attacker or a cybercriminal, as I mentioned, the cyber gangs, unfortunately it's money. It's because it's something that needs to be up and running. So unfortunately they will have to pay.
Excellent. Elena, you were going to say something, please.
So,
what's the clinician in you saying?
The thing is that a lot of people think about hacker, cybercriminal, but the cybercriminal is in at this moment just part of bigger. So you have criminals everywhere in the world, and they want to attack, and they will use for many different reasons to attack hospital or one in a hospital, and then find the reason to do another things too. They want to get data, so they will attack hospital not to kill someone, but to get data, because at the medical record, everyone is thinking about medical records and medical data, but you have all data of yourself, your name, your birth, where you're living, your account number, everything, social number. So you can get also the data. And in that attack to get data of the professionals or the patient, you can damage another thing. So the attack and the device can be like collateral damage. So then you can damage patient without intention to do it because you want something else. That's so big issue.
Yes. So let's pause you there for a second, Lena. It's interesting. I want you ladies to take the gloves off because I'm feeling like you're just a little bit too milquetoast about this. I'm sensing that you've got a little bit more. You started to talk about, Yelena, which is good. What is the impact of the patient? Let's hear from Nina in terms of from a clinical perspective. All right. Let's get down to brass tacks.
Let's stop. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going back to her comment from earlier because that's where this is going to start. You were talking about how something about patients and an older generation, and I don't necessarily think that's true because everyone is a patient regardless, right? As soon as you're born, you have an EMR record, electronic medical record. You have a number, things are in there. We are bypassing a learning curve for no real reason. We have different generations that we are building for and into, and we're like, you know what a smartphone is, you know how to use a smartphone, you can use everything else. And that is not necessarily true, as we know. So taking that into consideration, not that we need dumb devices, but we need to make it easier for people to tangibly hold on to the items, to make use of the items, and to do the things that they need to do with the trust that they are investing in these devices and the humans behind it.
Well, Nina, when I hear you say make it easier for the patients, naturally you're making it easier for someone with Sharka's skill set and experience. So how do you get that delicate balance, Sharka?
Again,
I'm ready.
I would not necessarily say easier. I would say that the technology that we are giving them and the applications not only should be easier, but it should be built with security in mind by default. So whatever they are using, it's already secure and easy for them to use. I think that's part
not always the case.
Ease of use does not negate security.
Wow, interesting. So, Yelena, in your experience with clinical, what I'm hearing from these ladies is that every device that comes into a healthcare environment is insecure by design?
Something like that. But also,
she's not wrong.
Gloves off.
But the thing, even they are also secure, then you come at the hospital, they are not like what I hear in Abu Dhabi, then they have everything with the one network, so.
But that should not be a problem. I mean, everything in my home is connected on one network. I got to use the same password. Isn't that what they do in a healthcare environment? I mean, Nina, you're about ready to explode. Let's talk.
Let's talk about your house. What kind of refrigerator do you have? Let's say Samsung. What kind of stove do you have? I don't know who makes stoves, GE, all these other things, but they're all on your network because they're smart now. So you have to integrate all of these different security parameters on the same network, which is the same premise as a hospital.
And they communicate with each other.
I don't have anything smart.
I saw a presentation from two guys from Israel. They came and they did use some cooling machine from the drink tanks at the hospital, and using that they came in the system of the hospital. So that's really crazy that you think you have secure a device like monitors of respirator or MRI, and then because one thing is on the same network, you destroy some another thing. And that's the thing what we need to be also aware.
Well, that's a unique perspective, Yelena. Taking off what Nina said in terms of equating it with the home network. Now, when you look at it from Sharka's perspective, you see it all on one network. Does that mean that it's a threat surface that is, porous and ready for compromise? I mean, I'm feeling like I shouldn't go to a hospital, perhaps.
You're making my blood boil.
Am I? Oh my gosh!
Obviously, flat surface is the basic of. It's a flat network. I can do anything. So it comes again. I come from OT security. compartmentalize segmentation that is one of the many steps that you can do to protect it, but that requires understanding, as Yelena says, whatever you have on the network. Okay, do I have machines that are not connected? Perhaps put them in one segment of your networks. Then you have something else, and that requires the knowledge.
Yeah, but you're hitting on the juxtaposition of confusion, because she is a healthcare professional. You are a hacker, and she has information technology staff that are, through clinical procurement, bringing these devices in because they need to serve patients. That's the purpose for a hospital. But you're telling me that there are actually parameters for good science regarding the cybersecurity of a hospital, and this is possible to coexist?
It's not for her to do the segmentation.
Right. Exactly.
It's the IT staff that should be trained how to do the architecture, how do you apply all these security controls. She should be trained on awareness that how to use these devices, what is a secure way. We know, don't click on this, don't click on that. This works like this. This is wireless. What are the threats? And I hear Nina citing.
Well, and,
Do you just maybe she goes without?
well, and I've got. Well, I'm going to. Sharka, thank you for that. That's impressive because I heard you use a key word, awareness. Now, Nina, isn't that the purpose for the biohacking village? I mean, isn't DEF CON to bring together clinicians like Yelena, hackers like Sharka, and come to a common ground? I mean, who's missing in that equation?
Your segues are amazing. Yes, that is the purpose of the Biohacking Village. Do you want me to talk about it? Do you want to talk about it?
I think you better brief us, young lady.
Okay. So this is a 7-year village at DEF CON. We have grown it to 5 different labs. We have a speaker lab. People come in talking about the new emerging technologies. We have a catalyst lab. People come and do the hands-on workshops. Tabletop exercises, which Bill runs. They're very Machiavellian. We go to failure because too often people are afraid of what the outcomes will be, and we make sure that you feel the things that you need to feel. We have Capture the Flag, which Sharka runs, and it's starting from how to learn how to Google all the way into our own version of the darknet. And then the last one is the Medical Device Lab, where we have medical devices, reported vulnerability disclosures, and the medical device manufacturers are there on hand to have those reported.
So, Nina, what I'm hearing is an industry education. Now, I've been with you for 4 years at the village.
Yes.
And it seems sometimes like it's an automatic reset for not only the manufacturers, the healthcare delivery organizations, the independent security research world. Why is there not a continuity of operations in this space? Clinically, why isn't that taking place?
Why isn't taking place what?
Education in the biohacking village. Do you go every year, Elena?
I'm from Europe, please. I went 3 times, I think, or 2 times, something like that. And I'm following. If I'm not there, I'm following what is going on. And
so you find value in it.
Yes, but you cannot expect from every healthcare workers to have some passion about security and to like technology, because usually healthcare people don't like technology a lot.
Right, right.
Because they choose working with people, not with machines. But we need to understand each other. That is what I told when security people or some people come in. When I do this, I can do that by you, whatever. And they're like, sure. And they're going away. And they don't trust them because you have also innovation that are coming and telling, oh, I will do that for you.
So, Yelena, when you look at somebody and you meet someone like Sharka, I mean, what's your automatic reaction? Is it a visceral hatred, or do you want to learn more?
No.
Tell us.
Do you hate me?
No, that's my when I see security people, I'm all the time interested. And can you do that? And I'm happy when I find out that they don't know exactly what they can do, because that will damage a lot of patients. But I like to know. But a lot of people, healthcare people, when they talk with security people, they hear a lot of technical sound, and they are like, what? And they expect they must know all of those things to understand and to protect, to be safe.
Well, what I'm hearing then is you're talking past each other. Because if I were to ask Sharka the same question, when you meet a clinician who doesn't understand what you're saying, what do you say to them?
It's not just about doing awareness. You need to do, I'm telling always, wherever I go, it's not just healthcare. you need to make the awareness fit to the people so it relates to them. And I find this like a click-through cybersecurity course. There you go. Next. Take. You're done. Horrible.
What I want
Please.
to say, we need to talk each other.
Yeah.
And security people needs to know what we need for work. And we need to know that's something what is not safe. And to understand not go deep technology, but understand that it's something is not safe and it can damage my patient and myself too. So when you start to talk, like, what are you doing? What are you needing? And then when we talk and you show me, but look, I can come here and I can change some data, some information, then I understand. And I'm like, oh, I don't want someone to change information because that information are really important to make diagnostic or to make
Yelena,
treatment.
you're frightening me. In fact, I don't go to the doctor. I'm never going to go to a hospital again. Nina, can you weigh in on this? Because, I mean, I need to be brought down off the ledge.
I have so many things. You've kept me out, so now I'm here. The one industry that is based on trust is healthcare, right? So you have to walk in and have that trusting relationship with your physician, but you also have to trust that they know what they're doing and the conversation is open and that whatever reaction to your diagnosis that they're going to give you, that they know the background of it well enough that they're not going to put you in a place of danger because the Hippocratic Oath decided that they are going to do no harm, right? So going back to a comment you said, when it comes to the devices and the situation that all of the hospitals live in and the ambulatory, it's a situation of adding complexity to already convoluted. You have the legacy devices because they cost too much to replace, or the code is just there, but you need it to work. And then you're adding in all of these cool new things that are already secure, privacy, risk or averted, things like that. But we're not talking about the contracts, how to do upgrades, updates, figuring out how do these things parallel the conversation. I did a lot of medical stuff before I did the hospital stuff. I can have a conversation with you. I can tell you what a virus is. I can tell you molecular energy. I understand all of that. When I talk to doctors, the conversation is much smoother because I can go from whatever area you need me to make it easy. And we don't do that generically in security. We do not make it a simple conversation.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're not talking about simplicity. Well, I'm going to ask Sharka this question. So if you're an independent security researcher, hacker, and you find a device on eBay, for example, that you know is in a clinical environment represented or operated by Yelena or Nina in her experience, what do you do with that? I mean, what do you do if you find vulnerabilities? You just go out on the Twitter sphere and Meta and say, hey, look what I found. What do you do?
I go to Biohacking Village.
Okay. And then tell us what happens next.
Obviously, because we also help with coordinated vulnerability disclosure. For example, during DEF CON, we have medical device makers and their devices because they trust us. And we have our hacker oath that our researchers are signing when they are doing this research for us during the DEF CON. And they're finding...
What's part of that oath if they do find something? If they find a vulnerability, what do you ladies do? Do you say, hey, go over there and yell it out loud? Or how do you control that information flow? I think that would scare patients more than anything.
That's me?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we were online this year, they had to click on the hacker Hippocratic Oath for hackers, read it, make sure that they agreed. And by sending an email over to Jay, who runs the medical device lab, it was their agreement that they were going to adhere by it. Then they got a different IP address so that they could ping into the Mango device that we had set up for the devices. By that point, if they had found anything, they had to adhere to, we will discuss it with whoever the manufacturer is. So we had separate channels set up. They would say, I found something. I would go into a private channel to have that discussion about whatever that was. And the manufacturer took ownership of it so that they could work through it with the hacker.
I'm hearing this, and I'm going to have to apologize.
Yeah.
If you have a vulnerability in a medical device, wouldn't you want the clinical world and the patients to know about it so they wouldn't use that vulnerable device? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of shadow games going on here. Tell us about how this actually works.
That's a great question. Here's the problem. What if some of those things are life-saving and they're already in a person because of pacemakers or insulin machines, right? Or in a critical care situation. I believe there's a 30-day grace period for a 90-day, sorry. So when you tell the manufacturer till they have to fix it and be very open about what happened. So you're giving that grace period so that people aren't actively attacking the device.
Well, who's holding these? I almost spit it out. The answer. I mean, who's holding the medical device manufacturers accountable? Is it the patients? Is it the healthcare delivery organizations? Is it the biohacking village? Who keeps them in check? No pun intended, Shark.
You're asking me?
Oh, no, just check. So there are 23 entities that run health, medical devices in the United States. Yet another convoluted situation. That's just the United States. And then all the other countries have their own situations happening. So there's a lot of laws, rules, regulations that happen. The FDA is the...
Who's the FDA for our foreign viewers?
The Food and Drug Administration. Under HHS, Health and Hospital Administration.
Health and Human Services.
Health, that's what I said. And they run all of the medical devices. They make the regulations for it. They control how that situation goes.
Interesting. So they're actually able to hold these manufacturers accountable if Sharka or one of her tribe discover vulnerabilities. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
More or less.
So it works perfectly. So Yelena, you hear this, and you've got the hacking world, you've got the biohacking village, you're a clinician, and you hear about a vulnerability in a device that you're using to save patients. Do you hear about it instantaneously, or what's the communication issue here? It sounds like it's a perfect world.
Which communication you mean?
You tell me.
I don't have to tell it. The problem is that the clinicians and the healthcare professionals have no idea about it.
Interesting. Are you hearing this, Sharka? Oh my gosh.
No, I can't. Sorry.
The usual healthcare professionals have no idea because when I talk with my...
right?
What? When I say that to them, what do you mean? Whatever. It doesn't matter. Because they don't know technology. And you can explain that there's some control device and they are like, it's not possible. Because a lot of healthcare professionals are aware, and I think for sure that we have a best security in the hospitals because you should have a best security in a hospital.
Now, Yelena, let me stop you. When you say security, what do you mean? Do you mean cyber? Do you mean physical? Do you mean patient?
Everything.
Everything. Interesting.
Because when we talk about digital and about cybersecurity, they think that when we get device, that device is good, first for a patient, and then that is safe, that no one can attack, that we can trust that device.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because Nina just brought up the regulatory bodies in the United States. And correct me if I'm wrong, and again, if a medical device manufacturer brings something for approval for use in a clinical environment, has it not passed the muster of the FDA? Shouldn't it be ready, good to go? Because if your answer is no, I'm never going to a hospital. Help me understand this.
It passes in a silo.
It passes in a silo. Really? So it's not entirely trusted against someone like Sharka with her experience? It's just meant for a clinical world?
Do you want to answer?
Surprise,
For
surprise.
Sharka is trusted because
Oh,
she will
interesting.
not hurt.
Of course. Not her
will
personally,
not-
but her tribe.
I mean, I believe the opinion is changing into how the world sees hackers. You still need to, whenever I say I'm a hacker, they're like, you say ethical one and not the bad one. I think that's where we should differentiate between a cybercriminal and the hacker. But I think what you were saying about the fact if a clinician finds a vulnerability, I wonder it would be a good tabletop exercise. Which is another thing that we're doing in Biohacking Village, but that our Red Dragon is taking care of. But I would say if someone comes to doctor and says, I believe there is a security issue with this, he would be saying, that's too bad. I don't think that they know how to report these issues, and it's part of...
Well, it's interesting you should say that, Sharka, from a hacker perspective, because I also heard you use the term coordinated vulnerability disclosure. Nina, help distill us down. I mean, you've got hackers who are helping from a white hat perspective, but they're viewed as being the adversary. And the adversary is viewed by what perspective? Clinicians, or is it healthcare delivery organizations? I mean, who is it? Who am I missing in this equation?
So we jumped. I just thought about all of our conversation for the last half hour. We jumped. So let's start from a basic premise. About 20 years ago, EMRs did not exist.
And what's an EMR?
Right. Electronic medical record. They were brand new. Nobody was doing anything with them. And then they started being created per service, per specialty. So cardiology had one, endocrinology, obstetrics, things like this. And then they started to come together. And because they were coming together from different areas, they were just stitched together with bubblegum and tape, hoping that it would work. And then
is that a technical clinical term, bubblegum and tape?
Yes, okay. It is. In my day, it was. I'm old. And then layering on that, the APIs that were created were just like, we just need the information.
And what again is an API?
Sorry.
That's all right.
Access point interface. So the information was flowing through from one to the other. And we were like, it works. We did our job. We are amazing. Thank you. You're welcome. Awesome. And then the laws started coming down because people realized things needed to be protected. And when the laws came down, there was money that was given to the people to start fixing the things, but it had already been implemented. So now people were backtracking and people were trying to figure out what was going on. Security was not progressing with healthcare. It did it around it. So healthcare is still very convoluted. Finance had their crisis. I don't remember what year it was. Maybe 2002? 2008. And they had to conform, right? They had to change everything because it was not sustainable. This is our crisis. I've had the same conversation for about 7 years with people. We need to fix this. This isn't working. How can we help? And now we're here.
Well, and it's interesting you should mention, how can we help? How can we fix it? I mean, I'll have to turn to Sharka and ask her, and then I'll come to you, Elena. How, from a engineering, a cyber perspective, can we help fix this dilemma? And I mean, how would you advise a hospital? How would you advise a medical device manufacturer how to come to common ground to solve these situations? The end state, from Elena's perspective, is always going to be the patient. I hope I'm never one, but that would seem to be the logical premise that we're operating from. So help us out here.
I believe it's also partially the fact that for us, because we're coming from cybersecurity, we're always thinking about security. But we need to think about the fact that when we are talking about hospitals and healthcare, it's a safety. So the focus becomes a little bit different. But what I think that would really help, and I'm seeing it in OT, you have this automation.
And what is OT again for those of us that don't know?
Operational technology.
Thank you.
Or industrial control systems. We have this automation period or pyramid, and that is or Purdue model. So that tells you it's a little bit outdated. It's from 90s. We are talking about changing it, but it sort of tells you how you should be applying a different security controls. And I think we should do something like this blueprint or architecture, how we should apply these controls in healthcare too. Okay,
so I'm hearing you say that we should apply industry controls from industrial control systems and operational technology to the medical field. Elena, how does that resonate with you? I mean, is a process logic controller for a nuclear plant the same as an MRI machine in some regard, or an infusion pump? I mean, I really don't want to be a patient hearing this. I'm going to run out of here with my hair on fire, what little I have left.
Now you can be happy that most of criminals have no idea what they can do and what they should do.
So tell us about that.
No, I wouldn't. But what I just thought, listen to those two girls, and they are not talking so high technical language. I was like, if I'm healthcare professional, I will be lost and I will be like, what they are talking about? Even you mention, what is that? And I will be like, really? So the thing is that healthcare professional lose them.
Well, so what would you recommend as a course of action? How to solve this? I mean, do you want more education from a cyber professional? You want to learn how to hack? Tell me, what's your level?
That's my level, and my interesting is something else. I would like, if I have a time, but I don't have it, I would like to learn also technical kind of things. But
you would be the exception in your field then, yes?
Yes.
Wow.
There are few people that I know that there are also doctors or nurses that are included in a security field, and some of them can also hack, and it's wonderful to see. But the thing is, I must think like someone from healthcare perspective. The thing is that my colleagues need to be aware that it isn't safe to know that we working with the things that are dangerous and can be dangerous for a patient. When healthcare professionals realize it, you will get movement that they will say to the board or whatever, hey, listen, I want to have a good secure device. I must trust because I make decision based on that result that I get from that device.
You're scaring me even more. You just mentioned something in terms of, clinicians kind of having a guerrilla warfare of bringing the awareness to the board. And the board is not taking it seriously. I mean, that's the basis for this panel, Healthcare in Crisis. I'm hearing nothing but the world is falling down around us.
It is.
What did you just say? It is?
Yes.
Okay, let's pause you for a second. Nina, tell us, from your perspective,
Is the world
you get to
falling off?
meet with everybody with your experience as a hacker, as a clinician. I mean, who's not paying attention here and why not?
That is loaded. There was a comment earlier about who the person that we're doing stuff for, and it was clinician, I think you said. I think there are multiple people in the triad, right? It's clinician, it's patient, but we also need to bring the software developer into it.
Did you say software developer, so
Yeah.
a technical person?
Yes.
Interesting.
Because if one is creating, then the other one needs to have that conversation of what they need and how to do ease of use for the patient, because they have to be the ones to describe it to the patient to take it home and use it anyway.
Well, I understand, though, that some of these manufacturers of devices have human factors engineers that focus specifically on that. In your experience, is this always the case? So pause you for a second. And then, Sharka, I'd like you to think about, in terms of the way that a patient interfaces with a device, how would you violate? So let's ask Elena first. Are these devices patient-friendly, or are they clinician-friendly, or where am I missing it?
You have devices, and you have devices, and you have innovation. So you have a lot of things that the big manufacturer, they are making, and they are doing their best to have all things together. So what the patient needs, what the physician needs, what the medical staff needs, what the security there. So they try to build it. They play also money. So that's inside organization of the manufacturer, PR and then board and
all legal.
Everything.
Let's bring it all on the table.
Also legal things. But you have also some small devices, some innovation. They are brought many times. Really, we thought we can help, but there is lack of communication. What the patient really need, what the medical side of that need real is.
Yes.
So you have a lot of software things, application that patients use, that they connect with the hospital, whatever, and then you have big house and everything on one network. Go to that.
All right, so let me pause you, because what you're describing for me sounds like is Sharka's playground. You've got medical devices in a patient's home that are connecting to a hospital. There can't be anything that could possibly go wrong in that scenario, correct?
You're totally wrong, and you know that.
What?
I mean,
oh my gosh.
It's like we are trying to run before we start to learn to walk.
Exactly.
And we are trading.
So I'm hearing some common ground between you two ladies. Is that right? I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket. Wow.
We made it there.
We did. Please continue. Sorry.
I believe it's a trade-off between ease of use for the patient or for the hospital and the security and safety. Because what I think the staff and the people that are creating those devices and the hospitals needs to understand that the security that we are talking about, that they are not too familiar with, it's tied to the safety of the patient and then the whole hospital.
Very important point. Okay, so I'm going to take the gloves off.
Yep. Can I take the gloves off and comment on this?
Yes, please. Yes. Of course. Absolutely.
So, before DEF CON, there's a tradition in my family where something medically goes wrong. So, this year, it was that my father was overdosed by fentanyl during a surgical procedure. You didn't know that.
No, I didn't know it.
So, the normal dosage for his procedure was 25 milligrams. They gave him 100 milligrams of fentanyl. So if you don't know what fentanyl is, you can take, I have very small hands and I'm not good at measurements, so pretty much just a dusting of fentanyl, and after that you're overdosed. It's a pain medication. It's a pain relief medication. And I could not, I was mental, and I had to go home and take care of him because I had to teach my father how to walk again, because that's how bad this was. He's fine. And all I kept thinking was, the doctor messed up. This is outrageous. I used to work at that hospital. I called people. I was very upset. And during Bill's tabletop exercise, the revelation occurred to me that it wasn't the doctor. It was the machine.
Wow.
That stopped me. And I called the hospital back and I said, I think you need to check your machine. I don't know if it's an update or what's going on, because I got all their notes and everybody was like, we don't know what happened. We're not quite sure. And I was like, okay. So this kind of situation is also rare because I worked at that hospital, because I could call people, because I understand what fentanyl is and the after effects and the issues. Whereas other people would have just been upset and, whatever would have happened. So when we think about the medication and the patients, your comment, I don't think it's a trade-off. I think we have to build both in simultaneously with advocacy on both sides and having both sides saying, yes, I agree, no, I don't, until there is a point of not perfection, but at least good usage.
All right, let's take a deep breath here, because that was like so serious.
He's fine.
I know, but my mom, as you all know, had a stroke when I was on a plane to Dublin, and I had to go home. So having been through that experience just terrified me. So this is kind of bringing me back. So let's take a deep breath, shall we? Let's talk strategic. What kind of lessons can be learned for the Gulf Cooperation Council, the Middle East, with regard to the way that the Americans have either figured it out or not from a regulatory perspective? So, Sharka, put on your hacker hat.
I am Switzerland, so
She's
can't.
Okay. No, I understand, but that's the perspective we would like to hear.
I'm from Switzerland, so it might be different, because again, when I do research, it's mostly European. It's very compartmentalized in terms of us having different cantons, so there is a lot of, I would say, miscommunication and the communication is being cut off. Luckily, I don't have that much experience of being patient in Switzerland, so I think the better person to answer the regulatory side of things.
Well, let's pause there for a second. You're not going to get off so easy being Czech working in Switzerland. Oh, no. So, well, hold on, young lady. Stand by.
Just joking.
Just stand by. So, are there regulations regarding the hacking world that you have to abide by?
Switzerland tends to be a little bit more advanced, so I believe that we do work with Swiss Army, and they are more open to talk about these issues. So I believe that in terms of also everything is medical devices, we do have.
So you would term it a success then,
yeah.
Sharka. Okay, Nina, I'm going to ask you this question. You're just glaring at me. So has the U.S. been a success or a failure in the regulatory environment from a cybersecurity perspective? Tell us what your thoughts are.
Why do you put
punches.
me in these jeopardizing situations? It's supposed to be success.
Success.
Smiling.
Oh, good. This is positive.
But it depends on aspect of review, right?
Yes.
There's a really good effort being done. There are guidances. Guidances are not regulations.
Nor are they the law.
Right. Guidances are please do it rather than do it now.
Right.
So the current administration of the United States has done a lot more to make regulatory things happen. Has put some teeth into everything to make it work.
Well, tell us about some of these things. What are some of these?
So there are new.
Have they included the independent security researcher world in these codified guidances for making patients safer or not?
Not codified. They're not necessarily bringing hackers in to do it, but there's an executive order that said we have to have an SBOM for everything. SBOM.
What's an SBOM?
Software bill of materials. So essentially, if you look at the nutrition brand on your food.
But is that not a roadmap for someone like Sharka to basically go and hack these devices?
I love when you ask good questions. So going forward with that. So FDA has also worked with MITRE.
And who's MITRE?
Federally funded research and development center. Thank you. You threw me off. So they worked with them to do a threat model for healthcare, which still needs help for devices because it's just device. It's not hospital. No one is documenting workflows. When I worked in the hospital, one physician had 19 workflows for established patients. We got her down to 7. Things like that. Is it working? There are efforts being made. Is there progress? Yes. Is it final? No.
Well, and certainly you're familiar with the JSP, the Joint Security Plan that came out a couple of years ago. What are your thoughts on that? Because I understand that it was a coordinated effort between healthcare, hackers, and medical device manufacturers. Do you think that's a success?
They're still working on it. There's an updated version.
So revisions coming out. What do you think about its base form, though? Remember, this is an international audience.
Yeah. Give me a minute. Let me contemplate life on that
Sharka,
one.
please. We'll get to you in a second, Yelena.
I was doing a research on, and what I think that was done right in US is that their ICS cert is also releasing advisories on medical devices. There was an issue, vulnerability in DICOM, which is one of the protocols that we are using for imaging. So that's all your X-rays and MRIs. That was done right because I couldn't find the same thing. I did research. I asked in connections in certs around Asia and in Europe, and we don't have anything like that.
Interesting. In my experience, though, I believe that the computer emergency response teams, the certs that you're talking about, they do collaborate on an international level. What I'm hearing you say, though, is that the information is not readily available, and why?
Not anything that is. I was looking specifically for ICS or medical devices, and I haven't found those being released.
So why would a medical device be in an industrial control system computer emergency response team advisory? Shouldn't it be in a medical advisory?
I wish. It is a good idea if there is anyone out there
because
from government.
Because it's an IoT device.
One at a time, ladies. Yelena is ready to answer this.
Yelena,
please, go ahead. So let me rephrase the question. Why are not these vulnerabilities that Sharka researches, why are they being put out in a technical bulletin when they impact patients from a clinical perspective? It seems like it's, again, the hands are going away from each other rather than across the sea together. Why is this? I don't want to go to a hospital, darn it.
Because, yes, the thing is the medical device is just industrial product. You know,
okay.
It's manufactured
I'll buy
product.
That for now.
It's not, it isn't, and we don't have anything in this world where you are, reporting only, problems with the medical things, device, software, whatever.
Okay, let me stop you there for a second. If a medical device does not operate in the intended use that it was designed, what do? You just throw it out and get another one? Oh, I've stumped you. Oh my gosh.
The big things,
yes.
like with machine, it doesn't happen, but that happened with a lot of softwares.
It has happened.
Innovation. It happened all the time for years. That you get
what
some
do you do from a clinical perspective? You got a patient on a table, and you're telling me a device you're about to do something with them doesn't work. What do you do?
No.
You hit the panic button?
Yes.
Wow.
No.
Oh my gosh.
The thing is that the big devices are much more, from medical perspective, safe. They are doing what they need to do.
So the intended use is being accomplished.
Yes,
okay.
You have it. The security issues, the medical wards need to be more aware about that because they still not aware.
So back to the awareness.
About that, what all those devices can do, that someone can control the device and do what they want, as they say.
Yes.
Doctors and nurses don't know that.
Right. Nor should they be expected to, correct?
Exactly, they don't expect that. But what I told you about the problems, any kind of problems from the small devices, from innovation, they are coming all the time.
Yes.
In a health institutions.
Yes.
You have that they are not checked, that this implant files was a big affair.
Yeah, you were telling me about that earlier, yes.
If you look implant files on the internet, you can find a lot of things that there were journalists from so many countries that they are looking about implant files, about implant things that you put in a body. I did talk with them, and they talk also that they did look also pacemaker and digital things, but it was small part from all. It was so much.
Yes.
So they didn't put a lot talk about that because that another were more from implant things that you put in a body, like breast implants and everything. So you don't have any regulation that device like you are. Do you know that if you put medicaments to use, that you have some approval for that? Mm-hmm. But for medical devices, you don't have that regulation. You don't have anything that you have FDA.
Yeah.
But not everything go to FDA to approve, and that's what we did talk about safety and security. There are two different types, and FDA cannot approve both of them.
Right.
If you look in plant virus, you can see what they are doing, especially with so many innovation in new things, that they're also bringing chaos in the medical sphere.
Yep. Let me pause you for a second, Elena.
Yeah.
Nina, I'm going to redirect this question to you as well, from your perspective with a combined hacking, clinical perspective. Getting back to the original point that Sharka was making. Thank you, by the way, Elena and Sharka. Why is it that you have the Computer Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, who's part of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, adjudicating engineering vulnerabilities on medical devices without clinical input? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why is this? Tell me.
I don't know why it is. I'll tell you what I think. Operation Warp Speed.
Yes. What is that?
It started during the pandemic to understand supply chain, to understand the healthcare issues, all the other things. When the administrations changed, CISA picked it up and they took it under their wing. Why are they implementing the warnings? I think they're trying to take on a bigger force within the agencies. I believe they also have legalities to do such a thing where the FDA maybe doesn't have those.
Right. What I'm observing and what I'm hearing is the FDA is clinical, patient safety. What I'm hearing from Sharka's perspective is that the ICS cert is the engineering side from a cyber perspective. And so that you're telling what I'm hearing, Nina, is that's the most likely government agency to release vulnerabilities in medical devices. That's the best we can do. Wow. Why is this? I mean, there are what are called information sharing analysis centers, aren't there?
Yes.
Where they're supposed to be sharing vulnerabilities. I mean, why aren't they doing it?
They are. So HISEC is for...
Who's HISEC?
Healthcare Information Security and Analysis Center.
Okay, all right.
And there's a newly instantiated bioISAC that is starting to do more for...
What's a bioISAC? That's something new. Tell us about that. Is that clinical?
It's starting to do more for pharmaceuticals, reaching into agriculture at some point, not current state, that has found a bit of a virus that's going rampant right now, and putting those advisories out.
Interesting. So, Sharka, what she just said for you and I, if we put on our hacker hats, not that I would ever pretend to be one, is she just described a huge threat surface which sounds porous. She used a variety of different terms that we could shoot through. Please, Nina, go ahead.
You know what else is the larger threat surface?
Yes.
That so many different advisories are coming from so many different places, and you have to go through your email and siphon through everything to figure out what is actually happening.
So that's Sharka's playground. Tell us about it. She's about ready to levitate again.
Get in there.
No, I think what it is really is it goes back to Jelena, our clinician. Where do you go when you find something? I am more savvy I know how to use Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever is your preference, and I can find things. For me, it's easier. I think it's more clear for Jelena or people on this side that it needs to be clear where they go if something like this happens. With more tech-savvy people, it's easier for me to find ways. By the way, I think it's an advancement for doing this. To have a place where you can report things where someone's going to be talking to you.
Well, and Nina, then I'm going to ask you the same question, Elena. So vulnerabilities are being reported. Do you feel that they're being channeled correctly?
Are being reported? Not being reported.
Either one, you pick.
Okay.
Are they or are they not? And if they are being reported, are they being dealt with in a timely fashion from your perspective in the biohacking village? And then I'm going to ask you the same question, Elena.
Are they being reported? Yes. Vulnerabilities are being reported. Are they being dealt with in a manner that is timely? I don't have an answer for that.
Wow.
Because what is timely? What is
patient safety? I'm going to turn it over to Elena. I mean, I've already determined I'm never going to go to a hospital. I'll die in my, bed because I really don't care. Not that I don't trust you from a clinical perspective, but if vulnerabilities in these devices, that you've discovered, how does this work? Sum it up for us. And then I'm going to give each of you a chance to give us the last word in terms of what you think this is all coming down to, healthcare in crisis.
The problem by healthcare professionals is that they don't know that it can be cybersecurity problem. So
a consistent
they will
theme
be
is
like
education
error
and awareness,
something.
right? education awareness then, or?
Yeah, yes and no, because healthcare professionals are so busy with everything. They, you don't know, administration take like 40% of our time or more, and we want to work with the patient. So a lot of things, you cannot put everything on a healthcare professionals, but they should have some place at the hospital where they can report and not just put this device doesn't work or something happened. Most of the time we doubt ourselves. We do make mistakes.
Sure.
Not that much technology. I have a just small story. One pacemaker technicus get patient and he said, I did hack my pacemaker. He was like, what? Luckily that guy was like, wait a minute. And he did find, but it was in that time only IT department, not security. So you need to make, I will make from my side last word, we need to make some connection inside of the hospital from security and healthcare professionals that they understand and hear each other.
Got it. I'm going to pause you there because I want to make sure these other ladies get a chance. Sharka, what would you give as a last takeaway for our international audience here in Hack in the Box, Abu Dhabi?
So I think that we need to look at it as if we talk about cyber-physical systems. Cyber-physical systems are any systems where if a change is done in a cyberspace, there is a change in the physical space. So we need to approach it in the same way. That's why I've been talking about the connection between the OT or ICS world and the healthcare. And I think because they're old systems, legacy systems, and they have this pretty much the same issue. So I think that we should approach them the same. But I also agree with Jelena. I see this as a consultant that goes to hospitals where you have a hospital's clinician doctors, and then there is that IT department that it's not within the hospitals. It's usually a third party. So I think that is also a little bit of an issue where there's a gap between the hospital, its clinicians, and the cybersecurity and IT, really.
Nina, last thoughts? Sum it up for us. From a clinical cybersecurity perspective, what is the greatest takeaway that you would give for the audience? You have the last word, young lady.
Oh, great. I love research. It's my happy place. I love comparing the laws and seeing where things are, where they aren't, where's the gap analysis, where can things be fixed. I went to university and I did translational medicine and I built devices. And one of the people on my team, to your point, did not talk to anyone about the device. He just was like, this is going to work and it's going to be amazing. And I punched holes in his whole story. And he was devastated and he felt his feelings. And I was like, you didn't talk to anybody. You created no surveys. You didn't try. Same university, they said that security wasn't important. I will be teaching for them security in medical research because of this. When we look at patients, how are we getting to help them decide what's best for them? How are we getting the clinicians to help decide what's best for them? I think there needs to be more research. I think more people need to put their minds together. It's not just a US system. It's not AUE. It's not Latin America. Everyone uses a lot of the same devices. We are all in the same hard place. So how do we work together to make this an easier way, not just for the patients, but for healthcare systems generally?
Thank you, Nina. Elena, Sharka, and Nina, thank you very much for contributing to such a feisty 38 Degrees Healthcare in Crisis. It's been my honor and pleasure. I'm humbled to be on the same stage with you three ladies. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of Cyber Week here in Abu Dhabi. Thank you to the sponsors, Hack in the Box, and good day, folks.